Christopher Nolan stands as one of the most influential filmmakers of the 21st century. Known for merging philosophical inquiry with mainstream spectacle, his body of work spanning from Following 1998 to Oppenheimer 2023 has redefined the parameters of popular cinema by inviting audiences to think deeply while being visually and emotionally overwhelmed. Nolan's films are at once cerebral puzzles and immersive sensory experiences, combining intellectual ambition with visceral engagement. His style is characterized by narrative innovation, meticulous cinematography, a commanding use of sound and music, and a distinctive approach to character development rooted in obsession, morality, and identity. Underpinning all of this is an array of influences, cinematic, literary, and philosophical, that inform the complexity and depth of his vision. Perhaps the most immediately recognizable feature of Nolan's cinema is his manipulation of time and narrative structure. His storytelling is famously non-linear, reflecting both an aesthetic choice and a thematic preoccupation. In Memento in 2000, the film's events unfold in reverse chronological order, compelling the audience to experience disorientation akin to the protagonist's short-term memory loss. This structure transforms the film into an epistemological experiment. The viewer's quest for understanding mirrors Leonard Shelby's search for truth, emphasizing the instability of memory and the fragility of identity. By reversing time, Nolan questions whether objective truth can exist when perception itself is compromised. This fascination with temporality reappears throughout Nolan's oeuvre in increasingly complex forms. Inception in 2010 constructs multiple layers of reality through nested dreams, each governed by a distinct temporal rhythm. Time here becomes elastic, subjective, and ultimately emotional. Cobb's longing to return to his children imbues the film's elaborate mechanics with poignant humanity. Similarly, in 2014's Interstellar, Nolan transforms time into a physical and emotional dimension, as relativity separates Cooper from his daughter across decades and galaxies. In these narratives, time functions both as a scientific concept and a metaphor for loss, longing, and the human desire for control over the uncontrollable. Even in 2017's Dunkirk, ostensibly a war film, the narrative embodies Nolan's structural experimentation. The narrative intercuts three timelines: land for 1 week, sea for 1 day, and air for 1 hour, that converge climactically, creating rhythmic tension and emphasizing the relativity of experience. The structure itself becomes the film's engine, compressing and stretching time to simulate the chaos and endurance of survival. Across his filmography, Nolan uses temporal manipulation not as a gimmick, but as a language of meaning. Time is both subject and structure, the framework through which characters confront existential questions of identity, morality, and purpose. Beyond time, Nolan's narratives consistently explore the dualities of truth and deception, order and chaos, reality and illusion. A great example being The Prestige in 2006, which presents two rival magicians whose obsessive pursuit of mastery leads to mutual destruction, dramatizing the cost of obsession and the ethical boundaries of art. The film's tripartite structure, The Pledge, The Turn, and The Prestige, mirrors the act of filmmaking itself, positioning Nolan as a cinematic magician whose own illusions depend on deception and sacrifice. Likewise, the Dark Knight trilogy from 2005 to 2012 transforms the superhero genre into a meditation on morality, anarchy, and the limits of justice. In The Dark Knight in 2008, Nolan frames Gotham as a moral battleground where chaos and order coexist in fragile balance, personified through the duality of Batman and the Joker. In all these films, Nolan's narratives are built around paradoxes that resist easy resolution. His characters strive for mastery over time, truth, or self, only to encounter the impossibility of control. Integral to Nolan's storytelling is his sophisticated use of allegory and symbolism. His films often operate simultaneously on literal, psychological, and philosophical levels, rewarding viewers who search beneath the surface. The director himself has acknowledged that his works are structured like labyrinths, and the idea of the maze recurs as both image and metaphor. Each narrative is a maze designed for both the protagonist and the viewer to navigate. Inception functions as an allegory for filmmaking itself. Cobb, in some ways, becomes a director, orchestrating a layered illusion. Ariadne, appropriately named after the Greek mythic guide through the labyrinth, is the architect or production designer. Eames acts as the performer, and the dream world becomes the cinematic screen. The kick that awakens dreamers parallels the jolt of an audience feels as the credits roll. Through this allegory, Nolan reveals the act of filmmaking as a controlled dream and the cinema as a shared hallucination between artist and the viewer. He has publicly acknowledged as much in interviews, talking about his fascination in his college days with lucid dreaming. Similarly, Dark Knight operates as political allegory, reflecting post-9/11 anxieties about surveillance, terrorism, and moral compromise. Batman's use of mass surveillance technology to locate the Joker mirrors debates over state power and ethical governance. The film's famous ferry sequence dramatises the moral test of democracy itself. Will ordinary citizens choose fear or virtue when confronted with annihilation? In this very way, Nolan transforms the superhero narrative into a mirror for contemporary ethical dilemmas. Symbolism permeates his visual design and recurring motifs. The motif of falling, whether literal, as with Bruce Wayne's childhood trauma, or metaphorical, as with Cobb's descent into guilt, symbolises both failure and transcendence. Mirrors, doubles, and reflections proliferate across his films, representing fragmented identity and self-confrontation. Borden and Angier in The Prestige are reflections of one another, just as the Joker is the anarchic shadow of Batman. Water too recurs as a symbolic force. In The Prestige, drowning becomes a metaphor for rebirth and illusion. In Interstellar, the ocean planet illustrates time's crushing inevitability. Nolan's films also abound with Easter eggs and narrative breadcrumbs, subtle details that reward attentive rewatching. The colour coding of Memento's scenes, black and white for chronological sequences, colour for reversed ones, visually encode the film's structural logic. In Inception, the spinning top remains an unresolved mystery, an object that continues to spin in the audience's mind long after the film ends. Tenet hides palindromic structures everywhere, from character names like Sator, Ari, Tenet, Opera, Rotas, derived from the ancient Sator Square, to entire sequences that play identically forward and backwards. These breadcrumbs reinforce the idea that Nolan's films are built for repetition. Each viewing reveals new layers, new clues, and new thematic resonances. On a meta-cinematic level, Nolan uses these symbols and Easter eggs to engage audiences in active interpretation. Viewers become participants, piecing together fragments, decoding puzzles, and questioning perception. This participatory mode transforms Nolan's cinema into a dialogue between filmmaker and audience, a kind of intellectual game that blurs the boundary between art and spectator. His films thus become allegories not only of their subjects, time, memory, and morality, but of cinema itself, the act of watching, interpreting, and believing in illusion. Nolan's philosophical storytelling is reinforced by a visual style that balances realism with grandeur. His approach to cinematography reflects both his reverence for traditional film techniques and his embrace of technological innovation. Working closely with cinematographers Wally Pfister and Hoyte van Hoytema, Nolan favours large format film, especially IMAX, to achieve his unparalleled clarity and immersion. He has described film as a real physical thing, a piece of technology that records the world in front of you, underscoring his commitment to the tactile authenticity of analog imagery. In The Dark Knight and Interstellar, the use of IMAX cameras transforms space, urban or cosmic, into an overwhelming sensory field. Gotham City skyscrapers and the infinite expanse of the cosmos both feel tangible and immediate, embodying Nolan's belief in cinema as a medium of embodied experience. His reliance on practical effects enhances this realism. The rotating hallway fight sequence in Inception was physically constructed and filmed without CGI, while the detonation of a real aircraft in Tenet and practical nuclear explosion effects in Oppenheimer testify to his insistence on on capturing genuine physical phenomena. This emphasis on the material world grounds even his most abstract narratives, lending credibility to otherwise fantastical premises. Nolan's visual compositions are often marked by geometric precision and symmetry, reflecting an almost architectural approach to space. He frequently employs clean lines, minimalistic color palettes, and high-contrast lighting to convey a sense of order and tension. The cool, desaturated tones of The Dark Knight evoke moral ambiguity and decay, while the golden hues of Interstellar evoke both nostalgia and transcendence. His lighting tends towards the naturalistic, privileging realism over stylization. Yet the interplay of light and darkness, literal and metaphorical, remains central to his aesthetic. In The Prestige, for instance, the dimly lit laboratories and theatres mirror the hidden secretive nature of creation and obsession. Through these visual strategies, Nolan crafts a cinematic world where physical precision mirrors psychological and moral complexity. Equally vital to Nolan's cinematic identity is his use of sound and music. His collaborations with composers Hans Zimmer and Ludwig Göransson have yielded some of the most iconic film scores of recent decades, characterized by minimalist repetition, rhythmic propulsion, and emotional restraint. Nolan has often said that he views sound not merely as an accompaniment, but as an integral, structural component of storytelling. Zimmer's work on Inception introduced the now famous slowed brass motif derived from Edith Piaf's Non, je ne regrette rien, itself a temporal metaphor. The song's declaration mirrors the stretching of time within dreams. Similarly, Interstellar's organ-based score, recorded in a London cathedral, fuses mathematical precision with spiritual awe, reflecting the film's fusion of science and transcendence. In Dunkirk, Zimmer constructed the entire soundtrack around the ticking of a watch, a sound Nolan recorded himself, creating relentless momentum that mirrors the film's non-linear compression of time. This device, known as the Shepherd tone, creates the auditory illusion of perpetual ascent, reinforcing the film's sustained tension and claustrophobia. Göransson's work on Tenet and Oppenheimer continues this tradition of sonic experimentation. Tenet's score reverses certain sound elements to reflect the film's inversion theme, while Oppenheimer's blend of violin dissonance and ambient distortion captures both the brilliance and torment of its central figure. Nolan's bold sound design choices, often controversial for their volume and intensity, serve to engulf the viewer, collapsing the boundary between external environment and subjective experience. In Tenet, dialogue is sometimes obscured by ambient noise, not as an error, but as a deliberate strategy to replicate the confusion and sensory overload of the protagonist's perspective. Through these collaborations, Nolan redefines the relationship between image and sound. His music is not merely emotional colouring, but a structural force that dictates rhythm, pacing, and perception. The result is a form of cinematic architecture where sound, image, and narrative operate in intricate synchrony. Although Nolan is often described as cerebral, his films are driven by profoundly emotional undercurrents. His protagonists are defined by obsession, guilt, and a search for meaning. Figures trapped between intellect and emotion. Leonard Shelby in Memento, Bruce Wayne in The Dark Knight, Dom Cobb in Inception, and J. Robert Oppenheimer in Oppenheimer all share a moral and psychological complexity that transcends archetype. They are haunted men seeking control over chaos while confronting the limits of human agency. Obsession, in particular, is the defining trait of the Nolan protagonist. In The Prestige, Robert Angier's fixation on revenge and perfection consumes his humanity, while Alfred Borden's duplicity erodes his integrity. These characters mirror Nolan's own artistic philosophy. Mastery requires sacrifice, and creation entails destruction. Similarly, in Inception, Cobb's obsession with reuniting with his children manifests as a psychological labyrinth where guilt blurs reality and illusion. Even Batman, ostensibly a hero, is portrayed as a figure of tragic compulsion, an individual who constructs his identity through pain and discipline. Yet Nolan's approach to character development differs from that of many traditional auteurs. Rather than relying on overt emotional expression, he builds empathy through structure and theme. The viewer's emotional engagement arises from intellectual participation, decoding narrative puzzles, inhabiting subjective time, and sharing the character's confusion or revelation. This method invites a deeper form of identification, one rooted in thought rather than sentimentality. Interstellar exemplifies this synthesis of intellect and emotion. The film's scientific concepts, wormholes, relativity, fifth-dimensional space, are ultimately metaphors for love, loss, and the endurance of human connection. When Cooper watches decades of messages from his daughter, the emotional impact impact derives as much from the structure of time as from the dialogue or performance. In Oppenheimer, Nolan achieves perhaps his most psychologically intricate portrait. The film presents Oppenheimer not simply as a historical figure, but as a mind under siege by science, politics, and conscience. The fragmented editing and shifting perspectives mirror his mental disintegration, transforming biography into subjective experience. Cillian Murphy's restrained performance, framed by Hoyte van Hoytema's intimate close-ups and contrasted with explosive IMAX imagery, captures the paradox of a man who sees too much and feels too deeply. Through Oppenheimer, Nolan extends his career-long meditation on knowledge and responsibility. What does it mean to understand the mechanisms of destruction and still choose to act? Nolan's artistry does not exist in isolation. His work reflects a synthesis of diverse influence, from classical cinema and modernist literature to philosophy and physics. He has frequently cited Stanley Kubrick as a formative inspiration, particularly for Kubrick's ability to merge intellectual rigor with visual precision. 2001: A Space Odyssey from 1968 resonates throughout Nolan's science fiction films, from the vast cosmic scale of Interstellar to the detached existential tone of Tenet. Both directors share an interest in humanity's place within vast, indifferent systems, whether technological, temporal, or cosmic. Michael Mann's influence is also evident, particularly in The Dark Knight. Urban realism and moral ambiguity recall Heat from 1995. Nolan borrows Mann's meticulous attention to procedural detail and his sleek nocturnal aesthetics, while amplifying them through mythic storytelling. Similarly, Ridley Scott's Blade Runner from 1982 informs Nolan's depiction of identity and consciousness, particularly in the way artificial constructs, dreams, doubles, or symbols shape human experience. Beyond cinema, Nolan draws inspiration from literature and philosophy. His preoccupation with paradox and infinite regress evokes the writings of Jorge Luis Borges, whose short stories often hinge on recursive structures and shifting realities, most directly echoed in Inception's dreams architecture and Memento's looping narrative. Philosophically, his films engage with questions of epistemology and ethics central to thinkers like Immanuel Kant and Friedrich Nietzsche: the nature of perception, the limits of reason, and the burden of moral choice. Oppenheimer's tension between scientific rationality and ethical accountability reflects these philosophical undercurrents. Even his recurring motif of the doppelganger, seen in The Prestige and Inception, invokes psychoanalytic theories of identity and repression, positioning Nolan as a modern storyteller in dialogue with the philosophical and literary traditions of the 20th century. Nolan's cinema represents the convergence of intellect and emotion, theory and craft, relativism, realism, and abstraction. His directorial style, marked by temporal experimentation, architectural composition, allegorical symbolism, and immersive sound, has transformed audience expectations of narrative complexity within mainstream filmmaking. Yet, beneath the intricate structures and technical mastery lies a profoundly human core, a fascination with memory, identity, and moral consequences. Nolan's protagonists, bound by obsession and striving for redemption, mirror the director's own creative ethos, an unrelenting pursuit of perfection even at the risk of collapse. Through his integration of philosophical inquiry, visual innovation, and emotional precision, Nolan has achieved what few filmmakers manage: the synthesis of blockbuster spectacle with genuine intellectual depth. His films invite viewers not merely to watch, but to participate, to think, to feel, to decode, and to question. In the end, Nolan's cinema is an exploration of the human condition under pressure, how we construct meaning in the face of uncertainty, how we define ourselves through time, and how, like his characters, we navigate the thin line between illusion and truth. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for notifications. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the next one.